Before diving into the story, a quick reminder. If you enjoy videos that go beyond a simple recap and actually open up the hidden layers of a movie, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave your like right now. Because this kind of support is what keeps these deep dives coming and helps more people discover stories like this one. Every time you interact with the video, you are basically telling the platform that you want more adventures, more mysteries, and more detailed breakdowns of movies that mix fantasy, history, and an almost dreamlike sense of destiny. So, with that in mind, imagine this. Have you ever had a dream so vivid that it felt like a memory from another life, something that refuses to let go and follows you even when you are awake? That is exactly where the journey of this movie begins, and the way it connects dreams. Ancient relics and an icy landscape is what turns a simple expedition into a story about identity, responsibility, and the weight of the past on one man's shoulders. The movie follows a renowned archaeologist who has spent his life chasing traces of forgotten civilizations. But what sets him apart from other explorers is not just his experience. It is the strange bond he feels with something that should belong only to history. A jade pendant that appears repeatedly in his dreams and refuses to fade like the usual images of the night. In these dreams, he sees another version of himself, a younger figure tied to an ancient world, walking beside a mysterious woman and carrying a pendant that glows with a subtle, almost spiritual energy, as if it were the key to a story that never really ended, only waited under layers of ice and time. These visions are not treated as simple fantasy inside the plot. They work like a narrative engine that pushes the character to leave the comfort of theories and museums and step into a physical journey, turning a personal obsession into a full expedition toward a remote glacier where the earth still hides secrets from human eyes. The script uses this tension between dream and reality to build a question that hangs over every scene in the beginning. Is he remembering something that truly happened? Or is he shaping reality around a dream because he desperately wants it to be true? When the expedition finally reaches the glacier, the environment is not just a backdrop. It functions as an active force in the story, almost like a silent character testing every decision made by the team. The cold is described through the way the characters move, how they protect their equipment, how each step on the ice feels like a risk. And the cinematography emphasizes this with wide shots that show how small human figures look when placed against immense frozen walls that may have kept their secrets sealed for thousands of years. During the excavation, the team uncovers relics that immediately strike the archaeologist as familiar. Not because he has studied them before in a book, but because their texture and shapes echo the exact same pendant from his recurring dream, as if the dream had been a preview of this discovery. The narrative is clever here, because it does not present this recognition as a simple coincidence. Instead, it deepens the mystery, making the viewer question whether the pendant in the dream is a memory, a prophecy, or some kind of connection between different times woven directly into the fabric of the story. From that point on, the expedition is no longer a regular scientific mission. It becomes a personal quest in which the main character cannot separate professional curiosity from a deep emotional pull that drags him further into the heart of the glacier. The script uses the team around him as mirrors and contrasts. While some members are more pragmatic and worry about logistics and safety, others are fascinated by the idea that they might be standing on top of an ancient sanctuary that has waited precisely for this group to arrive and reveal its history to the world. The tension inside the team is not explosive, but it is constant. Every new fragment pulled from the ice suggests a wider structure beneath, and each clue points towards something bigger than a single relic, hinting at a whole network of symbols and architecture connected to the legend surrounding the so-called sacred medallion. This balance between character dynamics, mystery, and exploration keeps the narrative moving at a steady rhythm, always giving the audience just enough answers to stay engaged while opening new questions in the background. As they press forward, the environment becomes more hostile, and the idea of venturing deeper, just a little more, slowly transforms into a moral dilemma. Because the further they go, the more they risk not only their safety, but also the delicate integrity of whatever they are about to uncover. Here, the script subtly raises questions about the ethics of exploration. How far is it acceptable to go in the name of discovery? And what does it mean to disturb something that has remained untouched for ages? Perhaps for a reason. The main character, guided by the dreams and by the echo of the jade pendant, repeatedly chooses to continue, and these choices reveal his internal conflict. He is both a scientist seeking knowledge and a man trying to understand why he feels so intimately tied to a legend that should belong only to distant ancestors. In this sense, the narrative places the sacred medallion not simply as a treasure, but as a symbol of unresolved history, representing all the stories that might have been forgotten if no one had the courage or the stubbornness to chase them through ice and uncertainty. As the team approaches the core of the glacier, they begin to find evidence that suggests the existence of a hidden sanctuary, a place that matches fragments of folklore and ancient tales from the region, transforming the journey into a collision between documented history and myth. Structures buried in the ice, inscriptions and fragments of artifacts create a visual language that connects to the symbol of the pendant, and the archaeologist starts to recognize specific elements as if they came from those same visions that haunted his sleep, strengthening the idea that he is following a path previously traced in another time. The script plays smartly with this duality. On one hand, the sanctuary can be understood as a physical site built by a sophisticated but forgotten culture. On the other hand, it can be interpreted as a kind of spiritual anchor, a place where memories, dreams, and history converge, making the audience question what is real and what is projected by the mind of the protagonist. This interpretive ambiguity works as one of the key elements that elevate the movie beyond a simple adventure story, inviting the viewer to participate actively, constructing meanings instead of receiving everything explained in a straightforward way. Inside this hidden world, the archaeologist's dreams become more than background images. They act as a narrative map that helps him navigate through the mysteries of the sanctuary, almost as if a previous version of himself had left clues waiting to be rediscovered. The medallion in the story is portrayed as a sacred object, not only because of its material value or craftsmanship, but because it carries stories condensed inside it. Stories about guardianship, responsibility, and the fragile connection between people and the forces they revere. The script avoids turning the artifact into a simple magical solution for every problem. Instead, it makes the object a catalyst that reveals the true nature of the characters when they are confronted with power, legacy, and the temptation to use knowledge for personal benefit. In this way, the medallion becomes a test. Whoever approaches it must decide whether to treat the past as a tool to dominate the present or as a heritage to be protected and respected, even if that means leaving some questions unanswered. The main character's arc reaches its emotional peak when he finally understands that the dreams were not just calling him to find an object, but to confront a version of himself that might have existed in another era, tied to the very origin of the legend. This realization reframes the entire journey. The expedition is no longer just about recovering artifacts. It is about reconnecting threads that bind different generations and learning that some responsibilities can cross time in ways that rational explanations cannot fully cover. In these moments, the film uses visual and symbolic parallels between past and present to suggest that the archaeologist's identity is layered, built on experiences that go beyond a single lifetime, as if the story of the medallion were also the story of his own soul, slowly remembering who it once was. This deepens the emotional impact of the narrative, because it invites the viewer to consider how much of who they are might also be shaped by histories and influences they do not fully understand, but still feel pulling them in certain directions. As the sanctuary's mysteries unfold, the team has to decide how to handle what they have discovered, and this is where the script returns strongly to the theme of responsibility. The archaeologist faces a choice between exposing everything to the outside world, risking the transformation of a sacred place into a mere attraction, or preserving its secrets, respecting the silence kept for so long beneath the ice. This decision is not presented as simple or obvious. Instead, the story shows how each potential path carries consequences not only for the team, but for the legacy of the people who built the sanctuary and for future generations who might never know these stories if they remain hidden. The movie uses this dilemma to question the belief that all discovery is automatically good, suggesting that sometimes the most respectful act is to accept that some mysteries should remain partly veiled, protecting what makes them unique and meaningful. In the final stretch, the film ties together its core elements, dreams, glacier, sanctuary, and medallion by showing that the true treasure the main character finds is not a material reward, but a new understanding of his place in the continuum of history. He leaves the experience transformed, no longer just an observer of the past, but someone who has felt the weight of carrying an ancient story and choosing how it will continue into the future, whether through records, silent guardianship, or a mix of both. This conclusion reinforces the idea that legends are not static tales. They evolve every time someone decides to believe in them, study them, or protect them, and the archaeologist becomes, in a way, the newest keeper of this sacred narrative centered on the medallion. For the audience, this ending offers both closure and open space to reflect. It answers the basic questions about what the team found, but it leaves emotional and philosophical threads intentionally loose, so viewers can keep thinking about the story long after the credits roll. So now the question turns to the viewer. After following this journey through ice, dreams, and ancient symbols, what would you do if you were in the archaeologist's place and held the power to reveal or protect a secret that could change how people see the past? Would you bring the sacred medallion and the sanctuary into the spotlight of the modern world, or would you choose to preserve their mystery, accepting that some stories might be stronger when they remain partly hidden, living as legends that continue to echo in the imagination rather than being fully exposed to the everyday gaze?